Okay, I want to revisit the texture deformer a little bit because the texture deformer is a procedural operation, and we can apply that transformation of the positions of the points on our mesh to anything, and I guess our paintFX petals, leaves, but anything we want actually. So let's start with a plane. All right. I'm going to go deform, texture. I'm going to reset everything, make sure it's all defaults, and hit apply. All right, so let's look at this thing. So by default, there's a kind of projection, right, which is this plane, and a direction, okay? And that's kind of what's happening by default. So if I move this, the whole thing is going to rise. If I make a ramp, and it's rising in the direction of the handle. See? Now I'm like pushing everything in that direction, which, could be helpful. But often, what is more helpful and more powerful is to push our transformations in the direction of the normal. So if we back to 0, do shading, wireframe on shading, maybe I'll get rid of the grid. All right. The normal is, well, it's actually a vector. It's a direction perpendicular to the face of this plane here, right? It kind of faces out. And we can make this a little less intense. A normal size. So that's a plane, right? But, every polygon, you can calculate the normals, which in a lot of these primitives is calculated by default at the moment of creation. But sometimes if you're doing something more programmatic, you might need to calculate the normal. But anyway, every object has these faces. All right, so if we go back to our plane, all right, so make a plane, form, texture. And now instead of the handle direction, we're going to do the normal. The handle disappears. And so now we can, kind of plug whatever we want in here. We could plug in a noise, right? We can manipulate that noise to stretch it out. See how you could get kind of leaf wrinkles with that. Can also play with the strength of these, turning it down. I could just have little ridges in the bottom, and if I wanted to do that, I can multiply this. Another ramp, right? And then there's no ridges on the on one side. And let's see if I can turn it off. Right? And you know, this is all still live, so I could add more detail to see my noise a little better. You know, I could even use this as a way of animating my mesh or points or anything, really. Now, where this gets cool is we can start to stack these up, right? So I just showed you how you could multiply the noise across a ramp, so I have more curls at the bottom and less at the top, but we can start adding other things. So for example, go to our hypershade for a second. Deformer, texture, adjust anything I'm not using. I can plug more into here. So for example, I can make another ramp. And this one's gonna, let's say, bend it. Right? And let's go to noise, color offset. Say up. And I could, you know, do it by hand if I wanted to. Or if I wanted both sides to be the same, I can use my repeater. There we go. Mirror, mirror. I want to go other direction. There we go. And then there's a little bug when you mirror, so way to get around that. Change the coverage a little. That should fix it. There we go. All right. And once again, dial this in exactly how we want. We can have more bend. We can multiply this other bend by numbers. All right. So it's like a really cool way of working, because let's say you have a system like paintFX or Bifrost that gives you a bunch of strands, or strands are basically like curves that you can make little polygon meshes out of, or the paintFX leaves or the paintFX petals. This is a way to kind of sculpt all those resulting polygons as you please, right? You could even, well, let's leave it at that. We can also, there's, if we, let's simplify this a little bit, show you the next thing. We looked at this deformer hammer. We looked at the normal, the handle, which is like a global thing, and we haven't looked at the vector. So let's start stacking texture deformers too. So for this one, let's say plane deform texture. And these are, if we look at the node editor, these are all starting to stack up on top of each other. Noise going into a texture deformer, and then that texture deformer is feeding another texture deformer. Right, we're stacking these up. And this one we're going to say, let's make it a vector. And a vector is basically a direction based on the normal. So if I wanted to just push it in one direction, yep. Here we go. All right, so now it's pushing the the points in the direction of this vector. Okay, and so then once again, we can use this. Now instead of pushing it up, we can push these points from side to side. Right? So then we could change the kind of profile of our little object here. And then once again, like maybe we want the front to kind of bow out, but the bottom to not have that happen as much. We can do the same thing we did before, which is we can multiply this by another ramp. See? So there's, there's a lot of power in this approach here. And it's showing you kind of the shapes that are driving. So that's driving our kind of displacement and curl. This is driving our modification of that front surface. Once again, we can repeat it. Hear it. And you can see how we're like kind of creating this petal, or taking our petal shape and pushing it further. and then each of these components here are in our node editor, which we haven't looked at too much, but we can kind of navigate around our little structure and manipulate them. I had it backwards. So more ripples at the bottom. All right,